Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
You can, huh?
I could do more than 28 minutes on that.
Well, let's just jump in. So, tell me all about... Did I hit record? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Tell me all about you. Give me some background information about how you got involved with, I'm going to say theater. I mean, there may be other things
Sure.
you do as well, but what brings you to where you are now?
Well, it's very funny because I went to Concord High here in the 70s, in the early 70s, and there was almost virtually no theater here at all. So, and it's kind of odd that of high school theater, I would go and see things at Bishop Brady, which at the time had a very lively program. Bob Stewart and Father Goodwin were very instrumental in keeping their program up and doing lots of musicals. Even in the summertime, they would have a Brady Alumni Theater, which many people in town are very aware of. And we spoke to someone yesterday, and she said, "Oh yes, I remember doing those fondly." And so that's really the only place I would get to see things. I never saw my first professional show until I was about 14 or 15 in Boston. And it was a tour of Canterbury Tales, the musical, if you can imagine. It was a little, blue for the time, but it was kind of delightful.
A long way from then.
As well, yeah. But I immediately got into it because I was collected records and things. I had part-time jobs, and I really loved the musicals of Stephen Sondheim, which were just kind of clicking in at that time. And there was like Company and Follies, and when I was in high school, I got to go to Boston to see the tryout tour of A Little Night Music before it went to New York, and the scores made a huge impression on me, and I did get to go to New York before I turned 16, and I saw Company and Follies on Broadway in the same weekend, which was like blew me into the stratosphere. It was an overwhelming introduction into what theater could do. Follies especially, which everyone that remembers that original production was just kind of completely blown away by. It was very much like Fellini crossed with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and the Ice Capades while you're at it.
The Ice Capades.
It was quite overwhelming. And it cost so much to put on. There were so many people in it that it never made its money back. But it is a legendary production, and people still do Follies. So after that, I did go to Emerson. I didn't graduate. The courses things that made the most impression were I was in theater education, where I got a background in teaching and directing theater. I never really ended up teaching it. I kind of changed courses. And
what year was that? When did you go to
this
Emerson?
This would be like mid-70s, 75, 76, around that time. And but it was I learned a lot about directing and producing at school. But then after that, I came back to this area, and then I moved to LA when I was 28. My writing partner from Emerson had moved there. On spec, we wrote, TV scripts and movie scripts, none of which took off. He on his own did a lot of, he sold scripts in terms of getting options on them, in terms of selling them, and then things never would get filmed, things like that. There's a lot of that going on. Development hell, so, and he was a terrific guy. His name is David Church, and we're still very much in contact. But while I was in LA, I was in the professional backstage union in the box office branch. So I was in IATSE and worked at all the professional theaters in box office, at the Pantages, at the Schubert, and at the Music Center. I worked at the Hollywood Bowl for, I think like 9 years in the summertime, which was an incredible experience. You would work your day, and then at 7 o'clock you might be tired and want to go home, but Ella Fitzgerald was going to appear on stage in like 15 minutes, and I would just say to myself, I don't care how tired I am going in.
Wow.
I mean, I saw Sarah Vaughan, I saw Ella Fitzgerald twice.
Seriously?
I saw Tony Bennett, I saw Henry Mancini, I saw John Williams many times. It was really phenomenal. I mean, people like Miles Davis and Nancy Wilson. I mean, those were like life-changing experiences to see them perform in a crowd of 18,000 people. So it was an amazing place to work. It was like going to summer camp every summer. And I started out doing little 3-month things, and then by the time I left there, I was working actually 9 months of the year at the Bowl, doing pre-season and post-season tickets and for special events. And then I transferred to the LA Opera, which was interesting because my brother was a dresser he was also in IATSE, and he was in wardrobe, and he dressed all the 4 Phantoms in LA for the entire 4-year run. And at times I was in the box office. We were working in the same theater, and that also happened when I transferred. I worked at the LA Opera for 2 years, and our box office was under the basement, under the lobby of the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. There were no windows in there, but not glamorous. But
so let me stop you right there, just for a second.
Yeah.
So while you're doing all this in LA, is this cementing in you a deeper love for a branch of the performing arts, or just are you all of a sudden saying, you know what, I don't want to act, I don't want to direct, I want to do something, or I do want to act, or I do want to, did it do anything along those lines?
Well, I was really kind of feeling out different aspects of it. I was continuing to write, with my writing partner. I would occasionally get into doing graphics and a little set design. I can understand the excitement locally, especially for the Hatbox here, because that's what we had in LA. We had, I must say, probably 150 storefront theaters.
Oh my God.
And the system was called Equity Waiver, where actors who were members of Actors Equity could perform for a limited basis in these storefront theaters. Now, it might be only for a span of 6 to 10 weeks, and then the producers would have to increase whatever small salary they had to a higher level. So the runs were limited, but we saw amazing things, many things that would develop and transfer to a small professional production, go into regionals, and then, go around the country. Some things got picked up for films. People like Del Shores started there. Xanadu, the musical, started as a storefront show in LA, things like that. But then great people from New York, like Tom Ian and Ron Link, and wonderful actors who were in the late 60s, early 70s off-Broadway world would come to LA. A lot of people from musical theater would move to LA for kind of an easier life and hoping to be on sitcoms and get commercials, etc., many of which did. And but it meant that you had a very active theater life. I ended up actually co-writing and co-producing a musical in Los Angeles. It was directed by a woman who was in the original cast of A Chorus Line. Her name is Kay Cole. And we had a cast of like 12 equity actors, and I think one who was not. So the level of skill was tremendous that you could bring to a production. It was a Christmas show. It was a cross between actually a Judy Garland live special and The Twilight Zone. Many people have said, what's the difference? But anyway, but that was kind of the point of the show. It was called Judy's Scary Little Christmas, but it's since been published by Samuel French, and it's done around the country every now and then. We have about, every other year we might have a production of it somewhere.
First of all, congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah,
because that's quite a star.
Well, it was the biggest thing. Yeah, it was the biggest thing that ever happened to me there. Anyway.
Yeah. So you get royalties from that?
I do. Yeah, not a lot, but sometimes enough for Christmas presents. So
what? That's impressive.
Yeah, it was fun. Like 3 years ago in Seattle, there was a full professional production, which was much bigger than the one that we had ever done. And I wish I had flown out to see it, because when I saw the pictures, I was blown away. But every now and then it turns out. Anyway, but that was that. So that was really That was one of, I think, my most amazing experience in theater I ever had in terms of teaching me. Basically, when you learn what you don't know. And I learned a great deal of what I don't
That's a good
know.
point.
There were things I thought I could do, and when you're working with professionals, they expect it on Thursday, and they expect it wonderful. And they have a right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And being in, some high school and community and storefront theaters, I things are sort of okay, and somebody will get them to, it'll all come together. Professionals don't deal on that level. It will come together. Yeah,
Yes, it will.
It will. Yeah, it's just going to be there. That's it. Whatever. So that was a different place to come from, especially since our show had special effects and was very technical, and I designed the set and the lights and I took on far too much, whatever. But it was a great learning experience.
When you were in Emerson, did you do any film work, or was it all theater?
No. There was a film department. We did some film study of things, but no, I was interested in filmmaking, and I would read about it, and I would make little Super 8 movies and things at the time, but I never went beyond that. And when I was writing, we did write some screenplays, but they were, I think, still kind of spoofy and more attuned to things that I liked in theater. So,
is writing still a passion of yours?
well, it is. I just find that I have very little time for it, and I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, I will, in a year and a half, I'll probably go into a part-time work situation where I will have additional time for that. But at the moment, I don't. And I've also been doing, since I came back to New Hampshire in 2004, I was in LA for 20 years. People say, how did you do that? Well, the last 10, I actually lived in Pasadena, which is not really LA. Pasadena is actually a really nice place to live. So, and it's only like 12 miles from downtown LA, but it doesn't feel like it at all. When you go there, you feel like you're in a nice, different place. So I enjoyed that. But when I came back to New Hampshire in 2004, I started doing a tremendous amount of theater. In those 20 years, the situation here in New Hampshire had exploded in terms of the number of groups, in terms of the activity going on, in terms of the quality. The theater awards had just kicked into being. The diversity in the types of original plays that people write, the chances that people are willing to take, all of that had just grown exponentially during those years. And so it was fascinating to come back and see how things had changed, especially right here in the capital region.
So your time in LA, I'll rephrase the question I asked earlier because I think I made you jump over it. Did you now acquire a desire or a better feel for a direction you wanted to go in personally? Did you decide, once you came back, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm in New Hampshire, lots going on. I really begin to love directing, or I really began to love set design, or something like that?
I think that I've always loved set design, and that's where I kind of started out. Really, even as a kid in junior high, I actually would find out what play are the community players doing, and I would go and read this play script on my own, design a set on my own that I would never show to anyone. I mean, I know that's very strange. Yeah, exactly. We didn't have this kind of encouragement, and this was not something that happened in our family. You'll go to work, whatever. So yeah. So
no, I want to design a set.
No, that was not. Yeah, I think my dad. By the time I was like 15, he kind of kicked into it. He go, oh, okay, this is not going to change. So he would give me $5 every Sunday and buy the New York Times so I could read it, whatever, and see what's going on. But that was, we didn't have, I was not driven to classes or lessons. There was none of that. So, Anyway, so, which is interesting because it really, but on the other hand, we did have the freedom to explore things and go places and, as we all know, it was a different time. But I really wanted to get more into set design. And when I came back to New Hampshire, I was able to do that I can't even look at the number of sets I've done in the past 16 years since I've been back here. It's been amazing.
Can we talk a little bit about set design?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a set designer.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing about it. So when you look at a play, do you have your own style, or are you fairly wide open and say, well, I can adapt, I can be minimalist here, this one needs to be very extravagant, or do you see something different? What goes through the mind of a set designer when you read a script?
Well, there's so many ways and so many things you need to have first before you can approach it. I love reading plays. I love thinking about how they tick and how they work, what the style might be, what the author's message is on the surface, and what the underlying message is, what the subtext is of the whole piece, what you want the audience to feel as they're watching it, and what you want them to take away. And then you start to get into the practical things. How much money is likely to be available to make something happen, whatever it is. What does the space look like? What are the positive things about the space? What are the limitations of the space? How does the space relate to any direction you might want to go in with this play? Or is the space completely, wrong for your immediate perception of what you might want to do with this show? And if that's the case, you may want to take a whole other tack on it. I directed and designed about 9 or 10 shows over at NHTI in the Sweeney Auditorium, which was a fascinating experience. And I did it over kind of a long span of time. I did a few and then a couple of years off and go back and do a couple more, that kind of thing. And so I got to see some kids growing up and then disappear and have a whole nother gang of kids and whatever. And they kind of let me pick any play I wanted as a director, and I would direct and design it, whatever. And there was a limited amount of money, but not a lot. But it really is a lecture hall with a big movie screen. And the stage area on the lecture up in front is basically, it's 33 feet wide and 10 feet deep.
Oh my God.
So it was fascinating, but we were, we kind of, we didn't really have wings on the side. We had a closet on each side. So since the stage was so wide, I thought, well, I can build that out a bit and make a little wing on either side and have an offstage area, and I could do that in the style of a show, So I would do something like Psycho Beach Party, and I would make like surfer beach huts on either side of the stage with grass, skirt entries you can walk through, and surfboards stacked up in front of a picket, fence and things like that, of a stockade fence, and everything was all, driftwood colors, and it was a hoot, and there's the big movie projector. Well, you can put the screen away, and there's just a black curtain, but behind that there's a chalkboard and a wall, whatever, literally 3 inches away. So, but I thought, I'm going to use that video projector. So for a play like Psycho Beach, I thought, I'm going to make these big catamaran sails and sailboat sails in different shapes, and just have them very stylized against the wall in a very kind of 60s look in slightly different pastel colors. And on that, we'll project like backgrounds, or between the scene changes, we'll have Beach Boys music and different surfer pictures projected, nice. Or, and there were horror movies blended in with the, it's a whole campy thing, and like a John Waters Nightmare, by Charles Busch. Actually, I think it was the New Hampshire premiere of that show we did, and then Ghostlight did it a little bit later, but NHTI was the premiere. Anyway, so, you can, with imagination, you can take the negative elements of a space and use them to your advantage. And I think it's important to go, not only what they, they don't have this. Well, what do they have, They may have something that there's some way you can turn that around and use it as an advantage. Another thing we sort of learned over the years at NHTI is the audience out, if they're in a kind of a proscenium auditorium setting, they don't have much sense of depth perception as far as what is on stage. So you can pretend something is, 8 feet back when it's really 3 feet back. They don't really know the difference,
Isn't that how Houdini hid the elephant?
Maybe. Something like that, yeah.
Depth perception.
But I think, true designers, they get into understanding a sense of scale and depth perception and how you can play with it, if you want to. And we discovered that together at NHTI over time that, if you can, it's not a matter of squeezing things in, but it's a matter of cutting things down. And I really would go through, I did The Skin of Our Teeth there. And the kids, first of all, it's such a strange play.
Yeah.
And it's funny, to look back at that play and go, it was a staple of high school productions in the 50s and early 60s. And it's such a frickin' strange play, when you, on the surface it is, But if you get into it, it really, at the moment, in fact, it's extremely contemporary in terms of issues that it raises, climate change and political upheaval and, all these things going on, the end of the world, the extinction of animals, it's all there, the development and change of the American family or the family in general. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wise and very witty play. But we were able to go through it and pare it down. Oh, first I have to say, when I brought this show to the kids, they went, "What is this?" They were like, "Is this like some Jim Weber bucket list show or something?" I said, "Yes, it is." So we just proceeded from there. But I have to say, by the end of the process, they loved it. They loved it. They had a terrific time. And anyway, but we pared it down to the absolute essentials of what it needed to have. And we were able to do it very simply, extremely effectively, and it came across. And this 3-act play that is, close to 3 hours long, just moved. It just moved.
That's impressive.
And it really, the audience took away a great deal from it, as did the students, as I said, who are, and it really, it's a student union function over their HTI. So they're really doing it to have a good time, whatever. But it was great to do plays that did have a message, that brought something to the audience. I was able to do The Last Night of Ballyhoo over there.
Oh, really?
And I don't even think I had like a Jewish student in the cast. Didn't matter, I brought in some friends who were able to teach us about, the rituals and things that were essential to the play in terms of the traditions and the culture. And the message came across tremendously in that play.
So you were directing and doing set design at that time?
Yeah, but as I said, set design sort of, since it was so minimalist, was really a fairly easy thing to do. Since I've come back in this phase, I don't think I've never really directed a play with someone else's set. And I think it would be hard for me to do.
Oh, really?
Because once I read the play and I start to get concepts and see how it comes alive for me, it's hard to put it into someone else's set. Mm-hmm. Now we'll get into Something's Afoot, but I was asked to be a co-director after the process had started, and I know Stephen LaJoy designed it and is the other co-director. It's his pet project, and I came in to support him as a co-producer on it. And but I know his designs and I know his work, and I thought, I can completely work with that.
So let's back up just a little into the process. At some point, you are actually a team member as a set designer. There's a director who carries the large picture.
Yes.
And there's a lighting designer and yourself. I'm guessing that's the 3 largest components in costumes.
Mm-hmm.
So is it difficult to have a director sit down and say, look, here's my vision, and then, because you have to match that, right? I mean, you may have your own idea,
right,
but ultimately the director is the one who says, no, we got to get rid of like that tree, or
I guess I find in community theater especially, which is really where most of my work is done, and educational theater. Anyway, but in community theater, people, because a vision sounds visual, most directors they go, bring me your take on it.
Okay.
And then
so
we'll
you
see
become a
what we
professional
have.
in that segment.
Right. And the truth is, by giving so much, at least in the initial stage, leeway to bring a visual concept in right at the very beginning, you can almost, you have a great say of how the show is going to come across and be directed, because your concept gets totally wedded with what the director's will be, and his vision will get wedded with yours, because he'll go, oh, I love this and I hadn't thought of that. Now he takes that into his vision, and therefore something that you created is now part of what
So you
he's
can
doing.
bring in a model or a drawing, and that gives him a framework within to work and create his ultimate final piece.
That seems to work most of the time. In educational theater, I find, especially now I'm doing some work at Pinkerton Academy, and they have some amazing teachers down there, and they are very, very interested in bringing a concept to the designer, and but then collaborating with the designer in terms of coming up with a complete visual approach to the show. So they're very open, but they don't usually say, well, just show me what you have, whatever, which I do find in community theater.
Yeah. Would you say that there's one important aspect? If someone said to you, Jim, what's the most important thing about a set design before you ever put a pencil to a piece of paper? This about set design you need to know.
I think that's very hard to answer, because I think so much of it goes back to being able to digest the writer's work, the play, the drama, what you have on paper from the author, the playwright. I think that without that, a very rich understanding of that, it's impossible to have options. And
is it important to you to be realistic when making a set? I mean, is that a component? I mean, because you could be minimalist and there's nothing hardly except a couple of cubes.
Right. No, I think that's determined by either the concept that you, the designer, come up with, or how the director wants to approach it. They may say, they may be doing, I don't know, let's say like something like Tally's Folly, or something that could have, it's in a realistic place and maybe a realistic time, but they want it to be more lyrical and poetic or something like that, and they may want it to look like a certain painter's. They may bring in paintings that they think relate to that, or photographs of a certain era, and that kind of a thing. And that can give you a way into a visual approach. But I think there's almost not a general sense. I really think to be true to the author, which really that, if anything was drummed into me at Emerson, it was to be true to the author's vision.
I can see that.
And the author's intention. You want to convey that to the audience. That's the whole reason we're there. So that kind of, not just respect, but understanding and appreciation, and really the whole experience is, making their intentions come true to the audience.
Do you recall the most challenging set design you've ever had? Was there one that you're like, what are we gonna do with this?
I think.
Or have you
one of the
seen a play? Maybe that's.
Yeah, I could say. Well, I think one of the most satisfying experiences that I've ever had, both as a designer and director, was Philip Barry's *The Philadelphia Story*, which is a 1939 play about rich people in, of the mainline area of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and but it's in the 30s. It's a completely different time. There was a movie version, and then a black and white, and then in 1940, and then there was a movie version in the 50s as a musical in color. And they set it to the 50s, but they moved the story to Newport, Rhode Island, whatever. But the play it's again 3-act plays. I know this is about smoking. I know people in old they would want to give them a break. So you'd be there for 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and then be a break, and then you go out and drink and smoke, and then come back for I swear, this is the only way probably like certain men would go to the theater with their wives in previous eras. Anyway, if they could drink and smoke. So, but there's 3 acts in the show. And Act 1 is in the living room of the rich people's mansion. Act 3 is in the living room of the rich people's mansion. Act 2 is on the terrace outside, like an elaborate porch or something like that. But Act 2 is split into 2 scenes. It has a scene before they go to the party late at night, and then the leading character, Tracy Lord, gets drunk, and she's at 6s and 7s. And then when you come back after that scene in Act 2, she is drunk, and she goes on a midnight swim with the reporter, and all these things happen, whatever. But again, and then that's the end of Act 2. Well, when I did this for the players, I thought, well, we're not doing 3 acts. That ain't gonna happen. So we split the show right down the middle. So we'd have Act 1 in the living room, and then scene change into the terrace, okay? And then at midnight when she goes to the party, end of our Act 1. And then we come back, we're on the terrace after the party, and she's drunk and goes, then we change back to the thing. So I had to put a scene change in the middle of each of our acts. And I thought, this is a very light entertainment. It's light in a beautiful way. It's light like Shakespeare is light. It's beautifully written. The dialogue is just sparkling and funny, but just it has this enormous amount of charm, and it's high comedy, which we just don't have anymore. So I wanted that feeling for it. So I thought, I think there were like 5 servants in the show, and they each had one line, So I thought, I'm going to have them do the scene change. So I had them do the scene change in front of the audience. Nice. And in Act, they changed it from the living room to the terrace, and then in the second act, they changed it from the terrace back to the living room. But I had them basically appear as though they were making the scene change. I had a whole other crew in the wings who would take a chair from them and then go store it, and then give them like a plant stand to bring on, And so you never really lost sight of these 5 servants. They would just go to the wings, hand something, grab something else, and move it in, And this included a grand piano, a wall of pillars turning around, a wall of big curved windows turning around. And it went from, and setting up, for the terrace, an umbrella and a table and chairs and everything like that. And it all happened to music. And I moved the show to the mid-50s because actually costumes would be much easier, for us. To do 30s costumes for with a lot of women is like, you just can't do it. They all have to be made. You cannot do it. So it was easier to fudge the costumes and have costumes in the 50s. And it didn't take much change at all. And these were people whose lives and way of behavior would not change a great deal over that, from, let's say, 1940 to 1955, per se. So it worked out. But I used the music of Leroy Anderson, the Bell of the Ball. And, he wrote the Syncopated Clock and the Sleigh Ride. Okay. Sleigh Ride. And it was light music that the Boston Pops would play and things like that. And it all happened in I had a 2-minute scene change each time, and with the servants and the things whirling around. And they would even bring the actors out, like as though they were inert props, and set them in their chairs.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Light change. Back to the play.
Oh, that's nice.
And it would dust them off. It was adorable. Whatever. It was almost like a musical, but it was so much fun, and it was a way that it was in the character of Istico the play. We were able to serve our own needs in having 2 acts rather than 3. And we were able to do it in a fun way that made it entertaining and go along with the spirit and tone of the show.
Do you watch productions and watch some of the scene changes and just bleed from the eyes, thinking, what were they? Why are they taking so? This is stupid. How did that happen? Who made that decision?
My partner Dave and I, we act them out in the kitchen at home. Like, where is that box with the silverware? Things like, So yeah, I do, and it boggles the mind when I sometimes go to. anything I say, I feel like I'm going to be kicked in the teeth.
That's
Because I was show
okay.
opening on Friday, and it's a musical.
You're a target.
But multi-scene shows, you know, you have to, these days, obviously, you go see a professional show, it is seamless. The lights come up, the show starts, and nothing stops until the end of the first act.
Yeah.
Nothing stops. There's always something happening. And you have to solve that same problem. If you don't use the original set designer's plans, you still have to find a way to solve it. And you can look at the score and go, oh, okay, from scene 1 to scene 2, there are 12 measures of scene change music. And then from scene 2 to scene 3, there are 28 measures of music, and you can repeat this little section. Okay, so you kind of go, oh, the first scene change is pretty quick. The second one, I have a little more leeway. You have to think about that as a designer. When you're doing a musical, it's not only the script that is your source material, the music, the printed music itself. You have to investigate and go, how much time do I have here? You know? And then you can go, okay, the scene 2 there, what's a quick change, that's like in a little tiny office where there's just like a chair and a window or something like that. There's nothing else. It's not a ballroom. You know, there's not going to be a number with 28 people running on or something. Mm-hmm. But then you go from that little office to the ballroom and you have more music. They obviously planned it that way to get to the next big scene. So, you have to think that through very carefully, and that has to be, that's the designer's job to solve that for the director. It's not up to the director or the cast or the dressers and the stage managers backstage to fix that and go, oh, well, you know, for the scene 2, for The Office, we created this set, it's too big, it takes, 12 people to turn it and bring it on. It's like, no, it can't be that way. It has to be something very small and simple so you can get out of that scene into the bigger one that's coming. Yeah. You have to keep looking down the show and going, what's coming ahead? What can I reuse? What can change from one thing and then be reused into something else, you know?
Yeah, I know as an audience member, it's agonizing to sit through when it goes dark. Mm-hmm. And you don't have a clue what's going on. Right. And it's just quiet. Yes. Or maybe somebody bumps into something back there.
Right.
And you sit there and you wait.
Yes.
And you wait.
Right.
And you wait.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what? Did they not prepare for this? How did they not see this coming?
No. That really is a matter of the designer and director right at the beginning, not sitting down, and maybe with the musical director to tell us, what can we do musically to make this happen? They have to think through the whole show, second by second by second by second. Not to go into too much into Something's Afoot. We have a scene change. We have a costume change in the first 10 minutes, where 6 people change their clothes. 6 people out of 10, maybe 6 people out of 10, 7 people out of 10 change their clothes, and the stage is never dark or bare or something is not happening on the stage, and everything that happens is integral to the plot. Music is playing, and it's time to music. It can't be stretched or changed or waited. And there's one of the leading young actresses in it. She has 30 seconds. She has to pop her head back on, sing one line, go back out, 30 more seconds, does the same thing again. So she has 3 blocks of 30 seconds to not only change from a full dress outfit to full evening wear, but when she pops out, she's in a bathrobe each time she pops out, and that happens exactly in a span of 2 minutes,
That kind of stuff makes me crazy. What's an author thinking?
Yeah. Well, actually, they really are thinking, because in this show, it serves a point. It serves a point because the rich people are like, they're all dressing for dinner and they're all excited, and we see them all arrive with their travel bags and their golf clubs and hat boxes and luggage and things, and wearing their travel gloves and furs and whatnot. And then they go upstairs, and things are still happening with the servants and the people, the other guests are popping out and doing this and that, and then they all appear at the top of the stairs at the end and they're all in evening wear, and then they all come down, grab a glass of sherry, and toast the audience, and that's like bang. The whole number is like 8 minutes long, but it's a riot and it's funny and it keeps the plot going and whatever. And they're changing at the same time. So
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So let's get into Something's Afoot.
right.
First of all, when does it open?
Something's Afoot opens Friday, May 3rd at the Concord City Auditorium, and it plays Friday and Saturday at 7:30 and Sunday the 5th at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Right.
And you came in when?
I came in at the beginning. Stephen LaJoy was chosen to direct it, and he had approached the players with this a number of years before, and he had a pre-made set design he'd already done. He had the model even, He's an incredible builder. He is just a genius. I mean, like, speaking of movies, a movie of him building the set, he is like this whirlwind in the studio, and you look out because, things are flying all over the place, and it's very dangerous, actually, but he's incredible as a director and as a builder and designer. So I came in saying I would like to produce it. I wanted to I don't know what I was thinking. What was I thinking?
I don't know.
Because we always joke at the players when someone comes in new to the group, we go, would you like to produce a musical?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, exactly, drawing them in. It's fascinating, and I certainly have more appreciation for all the work that they do. I have produced before, but this was a lot. And my co-producer, Alwyn Fine, has also produced up for a long time at the Players. And she knows so many of the ropes, especially in dealing with the facility, with the City Auditorium. So that's was her section of this. And she's had a little injury, so she's unavailable at the moment. But anyway, we have wonderful people filling in. But so I came in at the beginning, and I said to Steve, I would like to produce this and just make it smooth out the road for you and do what I can. And, and he said, you don't have to paint or do any set dressing, or he said, you don't have to do any of that. But it's kind of like, looking back at that, we go, how I am.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like, I wouldn't be happy, so it's a lot. But
So
anyway.
What have the challenges been for you at this point for the production?
I think the challenges are, and they are challenges that are facing many, many groups. I don't think players are alone, but it has, the challenges, I think, are getting tech support, getting, enough building help, getting enough painting help, getting people to work backstage, things of that nature. We actually, on this show, have been extremely lucky. I have not seen as dedicated, committed a cast to a production. I think everyone in this cast has been in at one time or another, not just to move the set on moving day, but to come in to paint and build and construct, giving up, beautiful spring days on Saturday and Sunday to come in and work. Coming in weeknights, even we had a Tuesday night was a tech night for us. The set was so big. The set is a full 2-story, 16-foot high set. It's gigantic. And it has a stairway that goes up and turns and up and turns and up and turns and has antique, railings and spindles all the way up and everything. It's amazing. Has hand-stenciled wallpaper, has wooden panels with beveled edges that are all actually made out of painted foam. It's beautiful. And this is Steve's design. And Steve is a professional, or one of the things he's been professional in his career is building antique houses and restoring stairways and woodwork in homes, and he knows all about that. It's amazing. And this is the kind of house you don't even see anymore. It's just incredible.
So he has that eye for detail.
He has and not only an eye for detail, an eye for how to construct it in such a way that it can be moved correctly and reassembled correctly.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, because to move it. Things didn't come completely apart. Some of the things were still in 16-foot sections, but they would fit through the loading door at the theater. That was pre-planned. They would take 3 or 4 people to move one of those pieces sometimes, but they were planned that they could. So when you put up a sidewall, you really only had to put up like 3 full sections, and it was done. Whatever, and that was great. There were a lot of platforms in the show and steps, obviously, but even the steps and the wooden panels and the wooden railings go around them were all modular. They came apart in larger sections, so they went back in larger sections. But it did take almost 2 full days to reconstruct the set this past week.
Goodness.
And I knew that it would. We allotted for that. We were lucky to be able to do a Q to Q last night on Sunday night, which I did not expect would actually. I knew that it was a possibility that it could not happen, but it did. So that was good. We had the orchestra come in on Sunday afternoon and sit and play through the score with the cast in the lobby of the theater while construction took place on stage. We often planned multiple rehearsals. Things were going on in one room. At the studio, we basically constructed the whole set and put it up.
I was going to ask you if you had it early.
And it was up so early. I mean, it was up like 2 days after auditions. It was amazing. People started rehearsing on the set. They used the same doors.
It is a huge benefit.
It was an amazing benefit and unheard of. But there are special effects in the show. There are people running up and down stairways. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's a farce. It's definitely, it's a wild musical, but it's not about necessarily doors slamming or people coming in and out of room, chambermaids coming in and out of rooms, but there's a little bit of that. Anyway, this play is, if I can talk about it for a second.
Be my guest.
Yeah, okay. It's hilarious. This show, it's amazing that people don't either do it more or know it more. It should be playing at the end of a pier in Brighton, like all summer long, every summer. It's that you really want to have a drink, go see it. It's that kind of a show.
Nice.
And then when you're done, go to the pub afterwards, because it is that kind of British, hilarious show. I think I don't know if authors are British or not. I think it started in the U.S. But Something's Afoot is a spoof of Agatha Christie type stories, specifically, and Then There Were None, also known as 10 Little Indians, where people go to a house on an island and there's an electrical storm and the power goes out and someone gets killed and then another person gets killed, another person gets killed. So beyond that, I can't say too much without making spoilers, but there you have it. But you have all the typical stock people that they have, blended together. And they would be like the retired military man, who's a bit befuddled and has a suspicious past or a curious mystery past, and yet his first name is Shirley. So there's just strange.
I know where
things.
those jokes
There
are
you
going.
go. There you go. Exactly. And there's a woman of mystery who speaks bad French. And her name is Lady Manly Prow, P-R-O-W, Lady Manly Prow. So and there's the greedy, sniveling nephew who's trying to find the will and hoping that he inherits the estate and the riches of Lord Rangor, and who's searching everywhere, and who's also like an alcoholic and chugging Tanqueray gin throughout the whole show. The servants are Clive, who's a typical reserved, close-lipped butler, and Flint, who is played by John Conlon in just one of his most wonderful character roles, who is very much probably related to Alfred P. Doolittle in My Fair Lady. Is very much that kind of Cockney dustman type who has a finger to pinch the ladies and that sort of a thing. I'm sorry, we are not PC. This is like a spoof of a
Thank
musical
God, how
British show.
refreshing. Gee.
Yes, it is. It is in a way. So you have to put all that aside. There will be gunshots, smoke machines, and strobe lights may be used in this performance, so be prepared.
Nice.
And I mean that metaphorically.
You've got it all.
Yeah. But and then there were the young people who is, the sweet young thing, who's blonde and curly hair, and then there's the college boy who breaks in the house, and they suspect that he's the murderer, and he's just kind of seems like an innocent, silly boy, and then they find a gun, whatever, and so all these things come out, and I don't want to say too much more, but It's just the script is a riot. There are a lot of puns in it and spoofy things related to these characters. But it's actually kind of elegantly written. It's kind of actually quite clever and
Well, it is a wonder that more people haven't done it then.
yeah, and there's only like 12 songs in it. It's not, and there are no reprises. I mean, the opening number, as I said, is this elaborate 8-minute welcome number. They say we've been invited to a marvelous weekend. And then things take a turn. But all the other songs are like 2 minutes long. They're not longer than that, and there's no reprises. It's just you just go through the numbers, and all the numbers are like upbeat British, like pub songs almost. They're almost like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. They all go 90 miles a minute. The lyrics are like Gilbert and Sullivan. Wayland Bundle is helping with the diction, with the cast, and the diction is like intense. It's as tough as Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh no, really?
Oh boy, yeah, it is as tough at times.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, there's a mile a minute song near the end where the author sings about the books that have inspired her, and they just rattle all these names of all these mystery authors off to music, whatever. And but it's very clever.
So how, having been an audience member at the Audi, I know the acoustics can be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring up the point about diction. How are you finding the acoustics right now? Are they mic'd? Is everyone mic'd?
Yes, because of the lyrics in the show, we decided to do lavalier mics with everybody, body mics with everybody, and I think we only have like one area mic just to kind of pick up in case something fails, that kind of a thing. We worked on the diction to a great deal, but really the sound design in terms of speakers and how that's all laid out is, our sound person is Eric Hodges, and he's spending an enormous...
Veteran.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And his daughter Tess is playing Letty, the maid in the show as well, wonderfully. And she's a Hatbox alumnus, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because we've seen her grow up, and then we just saw this point when she was in Pirates of Penzance a couple of years ago. Oh my God, she's wonderful. She's just so, anyway, just a delight.
She is so animated as well.
Yeah.
She has these wonderful eyes that just pop.
Yeah.
And she's very animated as an actress. I love it.
Yeah, and we, speaking of young people, digress for a second.
Sure.
We have David McNeil, who played Farnsworth in The Farnsworth Invention. Literally a 3-hour play where he was the other character, and he was wonderful. I worked with him a year ago on Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike.
He was in that?
He was Spike, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And prior to that, he had been only, I think, in Hunchback. He was in the ensemble for Hunchback of Notre Dame. And but another young person, David he plays Jeffrey, the young college student in this, and his love interest partner, scene partner, in this is Rachel Hunton, she was also in Hunchback in the singing ensemble, and she is a first grade teacher, I believe, at Bow, and newly married young woman in her 20s, amazingly talented. We were looking for basically sort of a young Julie Andrews type, and she nailed it to a T. She has a beautiful soprano voice. Her comedy timing and her sense of the whole, the whole piece is it's just right there. I think you will be hearing from this young woman again and again. So
thank God.
Yes, it's so exciting, to work with of these people. But we have, as I said, veterans. We have we have John Conlon, and Wally Pino is returning to the stage as Colonel Gilweather, the retired,
It's worth the quarter just right there.
It totally is. It totally is. And he is just, I can't even, I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. And another person who I know is a very serious singer and theater person, and she's on the board of the Players, she's on the publicity committee, is Ellen Berger. Ellen Berger is playing Lady Grace Manley Prow. And I really never knew that Ellen was such a great comedian. And she is, it's almost like a riff on kind of a really dotty Maggie Smith character, to that degree. And Ellen is, if you like Downton Abbey and, people know Maggie Smith, it takes that into another level. And she is just delightful and surprisingly so. And I think people will, and I know she's studied for years of voice at the Community Music School.
I didn't know that.
Oh, she's great. She's great. I mean, I've seen her in Nonsense 2 and a number of things, and and anything she's in, you just go, that's solid. She is a solid performer. I mean, and in this, she gets a chance to really show her chops in this. And I think people in a number of ways, and there are some surprising choreography and moments at times, but I just can't even go into it.
Dang it. You bring us right to the precipice.
I know. I just, this is, you'll want to drink. It's a wacky show. It's funny.
I know half the cast.
Yeah.
And that is... They have to be getting along super well, because nobody you've mentioned that I know is like a diva or is any of that garbage that they carry.
No, and there hasn't been 1 second of it at all. Yeah. We have Kim LaJoy, who is also a professional actress. She's performed at Britt Jean's Playhouse, and she's married to Steve LaJoy, and she, I think, far too beautiful to be playing, the bohemian amateur sleuth, Miss Tweed, but she certainly is, as far as getting that whole. She's the English Girl Guide leader. She's like Dame. Rutherford, Margaret Rutherford, who is in Blithe Spirit, that kind of stalwart British lady who's carry on, and, we're going to make this happen. We won't be afraid of anything, and blah, blah, blah. That is, Kim is carrying that off to a T. And she's just an amazing, and also she has 4 numbers, and her diction and her, characterization of this very bohemian, dotty English character is just so funny and spot on. And she's the one who tries to get everyone to follow her path of solving the mystery. But sometimes, you just wonder, maybe perhaps she's trying to deflect, suspicion away.
Seriously, well.
Thing. So
don't give anything
I
away.
won't. I'll just drop that in there. But
this is an excellent mix of veterans and new people. I say new people. I don't know really how much they've done, but I know that the folks who I know have done a lot of theater.
They have.
So this is a great amalgamation of old and young.
Yes, it really is. And I think, I can see that already, that the younger people are thrilled to be working alongside Kim and John Conlon and Wally and people that have so much to give, and teach them just by being in the the process with them. That's educational in itself. And some people are new to me, like Jonathan Flower is playing Dr. Grayborn. He's a guidance counselor at Concord High.
Really?
Yeah, very tall, very good-looking man who exactly playing a little bit of this goofy country doctor figure, but just nailing it. and meshing in perfect. And we also have Rob Dion, who is the artistic director of the Majestic Theater, and he's playing what I believe the English would call the Twit, who is the greedy nephew Nigel Rancor, who is searching for the will.
How did you get him all the way up here from Manchester?
Well, Rob has played this part before, I think, and he's I think they've directed or done the show before, once or twice, and so he knows it well. So he kind of knew that this was a little treasure trove of fun, and he was exactly right. He's hilarious, and he is just, if you've ever seen Pee Wee Herman do the tequila dance there, I mean, this runs a close, contender to that, I must say. But yeah, we're getting there. So there's a lot of good stuff here. Yeah.
Anybody we didn't mention yet?
I don't think so. I think we covered. Dano Noble is playing Clive the Butler, and he's a young performer from the Nashua area. He performed at the Hatbox in 1776.
Oh, I loved it. I saw, that was crazy.
Yes, it was an amazing production. He played Robert Livingston in that, and I believe he got to know Tess and some other people who were around that production. And Nora McBurnett is our choreographer, so she was involved with that, and she has that connection with some of the young people as well in the show. And she has certainly been busy with all her, knees up, high-stepping British pub choreography for this show.
Some of those people are not young bucks. Knees up is an interesting...
Yes. Yep. Well, the knees are up in this one. Not only the knees, but some other parts of the body. But anyway, I'm not even going to go there.
So but part of your job as producer, I'm guessing, is to cover a little bit of publicity.
Yeah.
So how is a lot of that getting done? And are you getting good feedback? I mean, by like pre-sales?
Yes, we are actually. I think we're doing okay. Spring is not our strongest slot. It's a nice time of the year, and we really want to.
And the Audie's huge.
The Audie's huge. But, literally, 3-4 years ago when they did Pirates of Penzance, they got about 1,000 people in over the 3 days. I would love to do that. But we're really clipping along, which is good. We have a publicity committee of 4 people at the Players, and Greg Fisher made a video for us. I think we were kind of smart in getting our production photos taken early on. Since part of the set was done, we did the photos right on the set, and a wonderful professional photographer, Michael Von Redlich, came up from Manchester, and we took all these professional photos right on the set, and we had them by April 15th, which was good. And so Greg Fisher got to make this little funny video with 1930s music, which is on YouTube, or it's on the Players page, and it's getting posted around. It's very cute. It's just still photos, like a little slideshow thing. And I did the poster and the graphics, but that's something I did way in advance, and it didn't take time out of production. And Ellen Berger and Alwyn Fine and other people are putting up posters around town. I've been running into stores and the posters are already there, so That's a good sign. Nice. And the online ticketing has been a big boon to us. I know it's not new to anyone, but it's doing quite well. And we Players, we have a $2 discount prior to May 1st. So if you can go online today or tomorrow at Concord Community Players, Community Players of Concord.org. Community Players of Concord.org, and buy your tickets online, and you will save $2 off the price of each ticket. Nice. So that's really good. And some people got mail flyers out, and if they send those in right away, they'll still honor that price. So, nice. And you can pick your tickets up at the window when you come. So it is doing well. I keep noticing. I check on the little screen at night.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay away from
it. It is hard to. I know. Yeah. And I think we did speak with the Monitor. I think we have something coming out possibly tomorrow in the Inside. Is that Tuesday?
I don't know.
Okay. I think it's Tuesdays. And both Steve and I talked to them, so I think there will be something coming out of the Monitor. And that's very helpful. Doug Schwartz.
It's huge, too, when you think
yeah,
about it. That's great publicity.
Yeah. We pay for a limited number of ads, but and those will help on the final weekend and stuff. So
they have these great little things you're doing on Facebook. I love.
Oh, yes.
They're
yes.
cute. What a great idea.
And speaking of Tess Hodges, she designed those, yeah. And so these were pictures that we had taken, because we thought this is an unknown play. It's not done very often, unknown musical. And so we wanted to get people to know the characters. So what we have is every day we have Miss Tweed's Book of Suspects.
It's wonderful.
Right. So we have suspect number 9, number 8, number 7, the maid, the butler, whatever. And you go down the line. And little notes that Miss Tweed would write about them to her private self. So she might write, a drunk, or so, whatever, things like that. But it's funny to see, something like that. So it was funny to create them. And Tess laid it all out, and it looks like period. It looks like something on BBC or something. It looks adorable.
Yeah, it is adorable.
So, yeah. So we have one every day, and I think we might only have one left. So I even did one for Miss Tweed herself on Saturday because she doesn't have a suspect page herself, even though she could possibly be a suspect.
I'm going to keep banging a drum, which I'm hoping somebody hears. And that is, it would seem to me that there is a logical tie-in here with certain bookstores that should be getting involved, because you've got this there. You mentioned that this is a spoof of other types of plays, like 10 Little Indians, and there's movies that have been, even Clue is kind of a takeoff of this. So if you were a bookstore, wouldn't you want to maybe see if you could have some sales by kind of cross-promoting this and putting up those DVDs or calendars or books or authors out there? I had this thought with True, and I'm pretty sure that these other plays could use this type of a cross-promotion thing.
Ray, I think we want you on our publicity committee sooner rather than later. I think it's a great idea. Carol Bagan also had something similar, but she thought there was a tie-in with shoe stores, which I thought was a great idea too.
Yes.
Anyway, but
maybe just a matter of thinking outside the box.
But
there's we've got this little community of local businesses which could be helping each other and cross.
I actually wanted to do chalk outlines of murder victims on the sidewalk in front of the State House, but I thought I'd get arrested.
Oh, that's funny. You should do it though outside the Audi or something. Right when they walk in.
Yes.
That's perfect. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So we kind of stuck to our traditional things, but we did do them, and I think we were smart to get our pictures taken early, and that really helps. And it really, as a producer, I wanted to schedule in the picture taking, and also we're doing posed pictures at the auditorium really early, so we will have them for show weekend. So when you look online, you're not seeing a picture of a rehearsal, you're seeing a picture of what the show really looks like.
That's nice.
And that's really nice, especially because the lighting design, that's a huge part of what the show looks like. And pre-posed, pre-rehearsal pictures, things like that, they might be good, they might be okay, but without the input of the other artists, the costumer who really, the final costumes often look so different, or are completely different from what was originally planned. And certainly the work of the lighting designer, and to see those things together on the set, the people looking at, so much of our lives are visual, and we spend time looking online. It really makes a difference to me whether I would want to go and see a production or not. I'm always impressed with, Theater Kapow does amazing photographs.
Don't they?
They really do, and I think it impresses me so much.
They're elegant.
They're elegant. They're classy. They're individual to that particular type of show. I really think the extra time and effort that is spent, or it seems to me it is, to cue those up and make it happen is well worth it, and it's a good lesson for us to kind of look at and see.
I know anytime Kapow puts up a picture, I pause.
Yes.
I don't care what it is. There's something about it.
Right.
And I just stop. temporarily mesmerized. For like 5 or 10 seconds, I sit there staring at the picture.
And very, very often, I mean, that's certainly for me, it's a play I do not know. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is.
Especially if it's kapow.
But it makes me curious to find out more, and that's exactly, I think, in publicity-wise, what they would want you to do. And I do. At least I may not always go to it, but I have always enjoyed it when I did go, I must say. But it makes me want to see the show, and that's what your publicity photos have to do.
Yeah, if you've done it right.
You know, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
I just want to circle back around real quick because you brought it up and we had kind of jumped into something's afoot. But you mentioned lighting design and how it works synergistically with the set. Lighting can kill the set as well. So have you found that you personally, when you're designing set, you need to work very intimately with the lighting designer? Or do you just leave it up to them and hope that they don't ruin what you've done?
Unfortunately, a lot is the latter, and I often, certainly, I haven't really, I never really started directing until I turned like 50, so that's a few weeks ago. But at the auditorium, I love working with Wally as the lighting designer. I think Wally is terrific, and just going back to Philadelphia's story, he would program in, like it was midnight, but yet the sun is coming up and you have an 18-minute scene. He would program it so it would all be on a timer, so the lights would change gradually, and by the time, the scene ended, the sun was up and the birds were tweeting and the light was yellow, it was amazing. But anyway, I find lighting is a very painterly tool of design, and I think it's essential that the set designer and lighting designer are able to work together. It is frustrating at times when I will say, okay, I have this big stone wall, but I really need it to, and I'm putting some vines on it, but I kind of need a gobo of some dappled light coming through branches onto the wall surface or something, whatever, just because it's just kind of this big wall and we need to kind of waste it a little bit or kind of fill it in so it looks more interesting or that it works for the moment. And, so often they'll go, well, I don't have any more specials, I don't have that gobo, and, I don't have time to go get one, or I don't want to, we can't afford it or something. So, I would go, well, had I known, I would have painted the dapple light on the wall, which you can't do. But, so you really have to team up. You have to find partners, and you have to find people that you're good at working with. And speaking of kapow, they work with Tava a lot. Tava Young, who's a brilliant lighting designer, and she also does the shows at Pinkerton, and on that gigantic stage. I don't know how anyone does it, but anyway, she's a great partner for them to be able to create a lighting visual structure for the show to work in, But a set designer needs that someone is basically painting your set again, and they need to be your friend.
Yeah. I have often said that as an actor, if people walk out of the building and the first thing they say is, the set was gorgeous, you as an actor have not done your job. So I would think that it's almost the inverse in your case, where you want people the set shouldn't be so dominant that it overrides the action that's taking place on the stage, right? It's a component, but it's not the show. Do you feel that way?
Yes and no. It depends on the show. Okay. And
well, like Noises Off, the set is the show, kind of.
Kind of. I mean, you need the set to facilitate it all. I mean, it's a farce, but that set has to facilitate the author's, structure and the movement of the show. And something's afoot even more. There's a subtextual thing that I don't want to get into, but the set is kind of dominating, and it needs to be.
Because it's more than just a set, you're implying.
It's more
there's-
than just a set.
Okay, gotcha. Well,
Yeah,
I can see that.
in a number of ways.
Yeah, I
It's
can
like,
see that.
you know, I mean, Audrey too is more than just a plant. You know what I mean? So that element is, well, you can make that analogy here.
Okay.
Yeah. But normally you want people to come out with the, you know, the meaning of the play, what message they took from it, or the performances that certain characters had things that they imparted that, you know, are important to them, or that things were either believable or things were, you know, working over a theme that was fascinating to them, that kind of a thing. Not necessarily always about how real it is or how, you know, I didn't believe it, but that, you know, the play, the design and the direction, you know, should indicate to the audience what they need to focus on, what is important here, why we're here, you know, and go along with the with the writer's plot for that. And I think it's the designer's job to go with that. And if people do say, "Oh, the set was overwhelmed. The set was like incredible," then the show may not be directed in the right way or performed in the right way, or even the designer and director may not have worked together correctly to make it that way. You know, I mean, for example, the skin of our teeth. The set does all these crazy things, but the show is not about the set. You know, I mean, it's not the way Thornton Wilder, you know, envisioned it to be, I don't believe. You notice those things, but the meaning of the scenes and the messages of the scenes and the play are far more important, you know. And, you know, why we go from Excelsior, New Jersey in, you know, 1905 to, you know, Atlantic City, you know, and then we go to, you know, there's the scene of Noah's Ark, and then we go to, you know, the end of World War III, and, you know, why does all this happen? You know, within the same play. Why is the Ice Age happening in Excelsior, New Jersey? And so, you know, there's a reason for that, but the designer and director need to work together to put those messages together, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything we didn't cover?
I think we're okay. No, this is. I sound a little exhausted. I enjoyed it. I'm not used to doing musicals. I've been saying at home, musical comedy is going to kill me. It's a lot. I have appreciation for those that do it. I do. I don't think I'm going to do one soon.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I say this a lot. I really enjoy directing a comedy with 5 actors and one set that doesn't do anything. That's my idea of a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it well. I know it real well. Well, my friend, thank you for coming in. It was a pleasure. You answered a lot of the questions I had. Well, again, I know nothing about set design. Maybe it came out in this stuff.
I don't know.
My ignorance.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray. No, this was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm just going to plug once more for if anyone's listening here. So for Something's Afoot, it's playing May 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the Concord City Auditorium, and tickets are available at communityplayersofconcord.org. And if you buy today, Monday or Tuesday, you can save $2 off each ticket. And there you go. Thank you so much.
One of those performances is a matinee?
Yes. The 3rd and 4th are at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday the 5th is at 2 p.m.
Okay.
And the box office usually opens about 90 minutes before each show. So
Brilliant.
There you go. Something's Afoot. Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh my God, you have a lot to edit. I'm